The International Monetary Fund has just released a report showing that they're worried about the impact of artificial intelligence and robots on jobs and wealth inequality. I mean, just look at the title of the report. And even though, as you know very well, these institutions try to be as polite and politically correct as possible, through all of that language, it is very easy to see that the top economists in the world are very concerned and not really sure what to do about it. I mean, I don't like to say stuff like, "I told you so," but this is basically what I laid out in this almost 1 hour long video from the fall of 2023. Now, what does that have to do with your financial future, employment and well-being? Well, let's analyze the report and its implications for you. The main concern of the report is the rise of both intellectual and physical automation. This is a trend that has been going on for decades, especially in the advanced economies. As the report says, mounting evidence indicates that automation in recent decades displaced workers in routine tasks, pushing down average wages and intensifying job polarization. Increased use of industrial robots in the United States hurt local labor markets. It drove down employment and wages, especially for manual and routine jobs. And the poorer the workers are, the most likely it is that they would be affected by the automation. The analysis shows that the introduction of one additional robot for 1,000 workers increased the poverty rate by 3%. The problem is that right now we are at an inflection point where these technologies are threatening not just small sectors of the economy, but literally tens of percentages of the job market. And also, unlike the previous waves of automation, this one is not happening in the span of decades, but a lot faster. As the IMF points out, unlike past industrial transformations driven by general-purpose technologies such as the steam engine, electricity, and early computers, AI can proliferate much faster than previous disruptive technologies. Even as businesses are working to figure out the best way to deploy the current generation of AI, advances are happening at breakneck speed, and the potential impacts are uncertain. The worst part of it is that in the developed world we have gotten used to the idea that automation is mainly affecting jobs in the manufacturing sector, which has become less and less important for our economies. In 2021, for example, in the most developed countries, the members of the OECD, services accounted for 70% of the economic output. This means that the fact that the current technological disruption for the first time is also automating intellectual work and is doing it at a rapid pace will cause a lot more harm and social upheaval in these countries than the slow automation of manufacturing jobs. The report says that although robotization can lead to displacement of workers in routine and manual tasks, the impact of AI could potentially be more widespread, replacing a broader spectrum of both routine and high-skill non-routine tasks. A lot of times in the report, it is pointed out that there should be a focus on retraining workers and government funds directed to the so-called lifelong learning of employees. This is a very frequent bias that I encounter, that I talk about at length in my artificial intelligence video I pointed out earlier, and for which you can find the link in the description. The idea is that simply through education and skills upgrade, you can solve the problem of jobs disappearing. There are three main issues with this. The first one is that unlike in the previous technological revolutions, here, this one doesn't replace only the human muscles or repetitive intellectual tasks. For the first time in history, we have a machine that is able to do intellectual work that is not repetitive and is of the same or soon to be even higher quality than the highest paid professions in our society, like lawyers, programmers, and doctors. A new paper from Harvard Business School says that since the launch of ChatGPT in November 2022, demand for freelance writers, coders, and app developers has declined by 21%. The researchers also found a 17% decline in demand for tasks associated with image generation, such as graphic design. Again, I discussed this at length in my AI video, but in a sentence. In previous technological revolutions, we went from hunting to farming to working in factories to working in offices in front of computers. Basically, at first, we were living off the land, then we started to grow our own food, then we started using our muscles in the factories, and alongside that, we started using more and more of our brain for professions like accounting, teaching, and medicine. The standard bias in people is that because it has happened for thousands of years before, then this time it will not be different and it will happen again. However, this time is different because I dare you to come up with a higher order intellectual job that can be done by a human once lawyers, software engineers, and doctors are replaced. It is like moving up and up and up and up on a staircase, And just because you have always done it, you are not able to see the fact that you are at the last step and there is no more of the staircase left. The second issue is that a lot of the people writing these reports and also a lot of folks in the tech industry are, in my opinion, extremely delusional. It is as if for years they haven't had normal social interactions with average people. I will tell you a story from literally a few days ago that will illustrate what I mean. As I was getting an order delivered to my home, the guy carrying the package started sharing that his day had been crazy and it is only just beginning. As a normal person, unlike the tech CEOs and the economists writing these reports, I had a normal conversation with the man and asked him why. What happened was that one of his colleagues had a minor car crash and he had called him asking what to do. The guy had told him to write a report and call the police so that it can later be used for the insurance. But there was one problem. His colleague couldn't write. This caught me off guard and I was like, okay, how did he pass his driving test? If he cannot write, probably he also cannot read, and the driving test has questions that you have to answer in written form. He said that he doesn't know and also shared that the same dude could not count beyond 999. Now, when I heard that, I admit I was shocked. I asked, what do you mean? How come he isn't able to count beyond 999? And the guy told me that his colleague had explained that he cannot understand how when you add 1 to 999, the result is 1000 and the number already has 4 digits. But you know what the shocker was? This dude turned out to be 32 years old. And he had a job as a delivery guy. Now, please answer this, dear IMF economists and tech company CEOs. How exactly are you planning to retrain that guy once Elon Musk or someone else replaces the need for drivers with autonomous cars? What are you gonna make him, a judge? An army general? A highly skilled neurosurgeon using AI and robots as assistants? The guy cannot read and doesn't understand the number 1000 at 32 years of age. Good luck retraining him. And there are hundreds of millions of people like that. The third issue with the retraining hypothesis is that, as the report states, in previous technological disruptions, the change was slow enough so that older people working in the disrupted sectors could gradually retire, and because there was not a lot of economic opportunities in them, young people simply didn't start working there. As a result, the sectors and types of jobs slowly died out without causing much harm to society. As the report says, indeed, technology-induced labor displacement often proceeds over a generation, with older workers leaving the workforce and fewer younger workers entering such jobs. The advent of AI could aggravate adjustment costs if it entails broader substitution of non-routine tasks and affects younger workers for whom early retirement is not an option. So now let's move to the big mess. How does the IMF propose governments should deal with the issue? Well, one of the actions is the retraining activities, as I mentioned, which could be beneficial on the margin, but I think won't be enough to remedy the situation. And the other leads us to taxes. Obviously, the first and normal instinct is to tax the beneficiaries of AI in order to fund social safety nets like unemployment benefits or outright basic income. And as you would expect, the report discusses this at length. However, an issue that I see in the report, which is probably not being mentioned by a lot of analysts, is an internal contradiction in the different parts of the paper discussing taxes. Let's start with the fact that the IMF states that currently some tax systems, including the one of the United States, favor labor-displacing technologies. They then go on to say that this is undesirable in a scenario where AI starts rapidly replacing jobs because it would incentivize companies to accelerate the process. Now, on the surface, this makes total sense. However, it expresses the desire of the authors of the report to slow down the displacement of workers and not encourage corporations to proceed with it. First, I don't think this will slow them down in any meaningful way, because if you're an owner of a business and you can save the equivalent of 100 full-time salaries, then you wouldn't really care that much about whether you have a tax incentive to buy the machines or not. You will just do it. But more importantly, second, it shows the intent of the authors to slow down the displacement a bit. However, shortly after that, it is stated that implementing a specific so-called AI and robot tax is undesirable because it will slow down technological progress and hinder productivity. It says that a natural starting point for the analysis of AI and taxation is the principle that the tax system should not distort firms' production decisions in order to maintain efficiency. Okay, so we have an argument about not taxing AI specifically, because it will decrease the development of this otherwise potentially beneficial for society technology. It makes sense. However, shortly after that, the report makes the argument that the taxes on profits that come from capital should be increased. In the section titled Policy Measures, the IMF proposes the following. First, they talk about strengthening the taxes on corporations. Then, they advise dominant players in the economy to be taxed even more. And finally, they suggest enhancing capital gains taxes. Okay, what is going on here? On one hand, the report says that special taxes on AI can hinder productivity. However, it then says that corporations shouldn't be encouraged to displace labor, which is basically what increasing productivity due to AI means most of the time. And it also says that it recommends increasing taxes on capital after it has said that there shouldn't be special taxes on AI, but it was AI that led to the increase in the profits coming from that capital in the first place. This is full of contradictions. The IMF is effectively saying, we don't want you to stop developing AI and robots and using them to increase your productivity, but we also don't want you to replace workers in your organizations. And if you make more money because of these productivity increases, then we're going to take them away from you with taxation. To me, this shows something more than a simple internal contradiction within a report. The people who have written that piece are way smarter than I am, and I'm sure they don't need writing lessons from me. To me, this contradiction simply means that even the top economists in the world are completely confused about what to do and are pointing out that there are no easy solutions because each solution can have terrible consequences. If you slow down the development of AI with regulations and excessive taxes, then you can keep the social cohesion in your country for a bit longer and slow down the displacement of workers. By doing that though, you will deny the whole society the miraculous benefits of AI in fields like medicine, transportation, and even simple day-to-day tasks like shopping online or asking your phone a question. Also, you will be faced with the race condition dilemma, which simply means that if you're not developing AI and robots to the best of your abilities, then your neighbor probably is, and that means that they will have economic and military advantage over you. On the other hand, if you don't slow it down and don't tax the surpluses from the corporations that will become dominant in every sector, then you face total societal collapse, skyrocketing unemployment, and riots. And even if you do decide to tax it, you will be faced with the difficulties pointed out by the IMF themselves. Here is what they say. Notwithstanding theoretical arguments, there are practical hurdles in implementing taxes on automation, robots, and generative AI. Implementing such taxes requires that governments identify the technologies or the capital assets in which they are embodied that risk displacing labor. However, to qualify such characteristics into actual policy is a tall order. This makes it difficult to define the tax base of a specific technology in practice. Differences in tax rates across assets that are similar can also incentivize relabeling of assets to avoid taxes. From an international perspective, the location of AI assets can be highly mobile so that tax can be easily avoided by relocating or producing the AI abroad. A specific tax on generative AI is therefore not recommended. What is my big takeaway from the report and what does it mean for you? What I'm seeing is basically a continuation of my thesis that I have developed for the past year and a half, and the major institutions are now waking up to it. We're living through a historical moment unlike anything we've seen before, where for the first time in history, the new technology will not create more jobs but take away most of the current ones we have. Professions that have always been seen as safe from automation, like lawyers, designers, and programmers, will rapidly become less and less needed in the coming years. None of us have been raised to live in such a world, and yet this is what we will have to do. If it sounds like I'm pessimistic, that's because I am, for the short term. I believe that the next 5, 10, and 15 years will see major disruptions in our society and economy as more and more people become unemployed and angry, while the social system and the governments are not yet fully adapted to the situation. This is the period that worries me. Beyond that, I am a huge techno-optimist when it comes to the benefits of AI for society. I believe it will eventually cure all diseases, create total abundance, and potentially even allow us to live forever. However, on an individual level, I'm more worried, and since this is a channel about investing in personal finance, this is what I will focus on. I am worried that people will be in a situation where they cannot find a job for years, way before the system has adapted to distribute universal basic income. It doesn't help the individual person a lot that in 30 years AI will make us immortal if he cannot feed his family today. This is why my long-term thesis has been that now is the most important time in history for average people to start building up their investment portfolio that can carry them through these years of uncertainty. If you have cash flow coming in from the profits of the big corporations that is paying for your food and bills, even if you don't have a job, you might not go on vacations and restaurants, but you still survive. These are the types of investments I am focusing on in my free investing masterclass, for which you can find the link in the description. It is very logical. AI and robots equal capital. Capital has always needed labor for production. However, if AI and robots can replace labor, then that means that capital alone will become enough for the production of goods and services, which will mean that the owners of that capital will realize outsized profits while the rest of the people become unemployed. As I said already, this will cause huge political and social issues, and until those are resolved, your best bet is to be on the side of capital as much as you possibly can. If you want a deeper dive into my whole thesis related to artificial intelligence, then check out this video that should have appeared on your screen already, which I mentioned several times. In it, all the points discussed here are explained in much more details. I'll see you there.